as really continue keep those businesses running and help like with the sustainability of those land restoration. So there's definitely interest. We see this coming more prominent in proposals, for instance, that are being developed. There's always this interest in exploring what are the business cases, what is the bankability of restoration. And I really like this because it really helps those that are planning restoration to start thinking about like, yeah, what is the end goal here? And how are we going to finance this? So really quite interesting and a great moment for AF100 because it's going to take those like sustainable finances to be able to achieve the initiative's goal, as you've mentioned earlier, to restore 100 million hectares of degraded landscapes in Africa by 2030. You are muted. Sorry, I cannot hear you.
Sorry about that. So we'll soon move into some questions about a new bout of funding that AFR 100 has received. But before we go in that direction, could you first give us a bit of the backdrop in terms of how AFR 100 has impacted the sustainability of some of Africa's key commodities so far? You touched upon moringa so far, but perhaps you could name a few other commodities that you've seen really impacted by this initiative.
Yeah, definitely. So, but I think at the broad level, it's going to really necessitate a good study to evaluate this impact thus far. You've mentioned that this initiative was launched in 2015, and really it just completed its first phase. And the first phase was really focusing on like political mobilization and supporting the countries that have joined the initiative to create good enabling conditions for land restoration to happen. Indeed, so far 33 African countries have joined this initiative, and now they are thinking about really how do we accelerate land restoration on the ground. But yeah, there are more cases, promising cases really. In addition to the Moringa one, there's another alumni from the Land Accelerator program called Exotic APZ, and they produce macadamia nuts. They are based in Kenya. And they started to also integrate land restoration into their business models. And this helped the company really increase their sales. I think the latest information I've seen from them is that their sales have increased to 1,800%. It's a big increase. And this increase and these successes really fuels more investors or supporters to help them achieve even more. So the company recently secured a 1 million grant from USAID, and this money is going to help them expand and help them continue to produce more macadamia nuts sustainably. I also know that last year, WRI, in collaboration with One Tree Planted, Realize Impact, they were able to mobilize funding to support top 100 restoration actors in F100. And among those that are being supported are about 20 land restoration businesses. This just started last year. So we are really excited about this opportunity to go on a learning journey with these businesses to see how the restoration work will be impacting the key commodities in Africa. So stay tuned for more information. I'm sure the good is yet to come.
Great. We will definitely stay tuned. And it was nice to hear the example of the macadamia nuts, which reflects what you said earlier about the moringa as well, a bit about how investment just provokes more restoration and so on. And it creates this really nice harmony between the two. So as I mentioned a little bit in my last question, but I'll flesh out a bit more now. Last month at the COP27 and surrounding that UN climate change conference, there was a new bout of funding announced for AFR 100. So there was a $2 billion blended finance mechanism announced that will support locally led African restoration efforts. That came from SouthBridge Investments and the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa. And the Bezos Earth Fund announced a $50 million pledge to help restore two really big ecosystems in East Africa and Central Africa, the Greater Rusizi Basin and the Great Rift Valley. So what role will these investments and these financial pledges play in the continent's value chains?
Yeah, no, these commitments are coming at the right time when, as I mentioned, the initiative is really like looking for opportunities or avenues to accelerate land restoration on the ground. So specifically, the money that is confirmed is really going to go towards supporting land restoration champions on the ground so that they can have access to the capital that they need to implement restoration, and they can be equipped with the technical skills and receive any other technical assistance they may need to make restoration, to implement restoration well and sustainably. The initiative is really also going into like key focus geographies to make sure that there can be like tangible, observable action on the ground, which then serves as an inspiration to replicate and scale up through the rest of the region, of the countries that are member of the initiative. So really exciting moment, exciting time where more spotlight is going to be really put on those actors on the ground, really making sure that they are receiving everything that they need to make restoration really well. And it continues also to support the countries and the government and the member states, because we know that they have a role to play on creating those enabling conditions, on making sure that there are right markets so that those products, for instance, that will emanate from restoration are sold and they are profitable to those improve the economic conditions in those local champions, local communities that are implementing restoration. I have to say, really, this is a good time to make sure that each of the actors are playing their role really well. And funding really helps with that, because it can help you like really think about, okay, now that the funding is there, how do we use it more sustainably? How do we make sure that all the pieces come together to create this thing that is much, much bigger than each of individual action? And the money is really going towards that.
That's a really beautiful answer. And yeah, feeding this money into the bigger picture and the bigger perspective and this enabling environment that links all levels. Mm-hmm. I'd now like to dive into food in particular. Food sovereignty is a major topic and a major issue for the continent, and one that countries are quite focused on improving. So for food in particular, how will the continued progress of AFR 100 influence Africa's food supply? And I know you've touched on this in a few of the crops with macadamia, with moringa, but in the big picture perspective, how does food play into AFR 100?
There is going to be like very important implication on food supply. And I should say there should be important implications on food supply. Africa so far is one of the most degraded areas or continent on the earth. And we see that our food production continues to go downwards while our population continues to increase. So Africa is facing a major food security challenge. And in fact, when you look at this land restoration commitment, land restoration pledges, national restoration strategies, many countries are not doing restoration for the sake of restoration. They want to improve food supply, food production. They want to make sure that the communities, their populations are well nourished. So those linkages are definitely there. And I think as we move into these specific landscapes, this actually also creates another opportunity to check whether those linkages are there. Make sure that this restoration is checking both on economic growth, it's checking on our food supply, making sure that those key areas where we want to improve are being tackled by the restoration interventions. So this also goes back to the planning that we're talking earlier, because that necessitates certain planning, because when you are restoring, for instance, for like growing timber is different for when you are restoring for food security. It's possible that those two goals could overlap in certain areas, but I'm saying this to say it goes in the planning. And then as a research institution, WRI, we are interested in checking those linkages, and we have a great opportunity here with the landscape specific work. I think I have to also mark this as another area where we have to stay tuned to see like progress, but it's already promising. I think there are case studies that show those linkages between, land restoration and food security. And we look forward to seeing more of this in the AF100 initiative as well.
Thank you. And so I just have one more question before we wrap up, also with respect to your time. As AFR 100 is a country-led initiative, as I've mentioned a couple times here, and you've elucidated really clearly, what are some AFR 100 countries' main demands at the moment, and how can their demands be met?
Yeah, great question. So we, WRI, as you've mentioned, is one of the technical partner of this initiative. And as we continue to support the initiative at the member state, we see that countries are at various stages of their restoration journey. There are countries that have progressed quite fast. These are the countries that were like the first one to join the initiative, because this is an ongoing process. In fact, I think last month, another country just joined the initiative, hence why there are 33. But like those that were first to join the initiative really like made progress on working on the enabling environment, creating strategies, creating plans on how to go from one number, because you tend to see, 5 million hectares, 2 million hectares, but what does it mean within a country? So we've seen countries start to develop those strategies on how to implement their pledges. So those are some of the front runner countries, and those countries really what they need at the moment is this funding or support to then implement those plans that they have put together. Funding that can go towards direct restoration interventions on the ground, or funding that could go towards supporting technical capacity, so that, for instance, they can develop, bankable, competitive proposals, for instance, as we were talking earlier. So those are the type of demands that we tend to see emerging from those countries. There are other countries that are still looking for inspiration. They have joined the initiative and they are still figuring out what do we do next. So they are looking for inspiration from and to learn from existing successes already. I think it fuels you extra, like it adds extra motivation when you see that something can actually work. So for those countries, they benefit from exchanges during regional networking events that the AF100 Secretariat puts together each year. There is the AF100 annual partnership meeting where countries meet to exchange on progress and even start to discuss challenges and internally start to come up with ideas. So for instance, if you are grappling with issues on how to create a national restoration strategy and you are interacting with a country that already has one, you really benefit from that peer-to-peer exchange. And for them, that's what they need at that time. And then once they get there, they will also be needing the resources and other technical capacity that other countries need. And there are others that still need to join the movement. I think there are more than 33 countries in Africa, and only 33 countries have joined the F100. And I think the initiative could use more support and more political mobilization, that this becomes really a regional movement. Yeah.
Well, yes, we also hope to see it grow into a movement larger than the one it has already become, with the help of this new funding, with the help of the exchanges and the capacity building, the peer-to-peer support that you're discussing. Also, and thanks to the work of wonderful partners such as the World Resources Institute. But Bernadette, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you and to learn more about what's happening with this incredible initiative. And thank you for expounding this kind of elusive link between AFR 100 and value chains. It's been really educational for me and hopefully for our listeners as well. So thank you to everyone who made the time to join us here today. Thanks again to you, Bernadette, and we'll see you all next time on GLF Live.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gabrielle. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.